Good morning. Right before the new year. Happy Hanukkah. I'm only going to talk about one film today because I have to go on the radio in a couple hours. I'm filling in for my colleague James, who's away this week in Cambodia. Lucky guy. And so I got to go out there. And I still have a lot of work to do before I go to the radio station. So, without further ado, cats. Oh, well, you know what? Most critics, if you've, I'm sure you've heard, they're calling this film the worst film of the year. And many of them are calling it the worst of the decade. And I even read two reviews that are calling it the worst film of the millennium. I assume they mean so far, because we're only like 19 years into the millennium. So, unless they're just so sure that the next 81 years are just going to be not as bad as this. But the question is Cats really all that bad? I mean, that's a pretty high claim to say. Forget about the millennium. Okay, but the worst film of the decade, that's a pretty, damning statement to make. So let's start with a bit of history. Cats, the play, it premiered in London 1981. When did I see it? I saw it, I must have seen it like 85 or something. I'm not sure. Premiered in London 1981. It's based on the 1939 poetry collection by T.S. Eliot called Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Now, Andrew Lloyd Webber penned the musical. It's about a tribe of cats called jellicles. Don't ask me what jellicles are because I don't know, and nobody seems to know. One night every year, their wise leader makes the jellicle choice, which is to decide which cat will ascend to the Heaviside layer and come back to a new life. Now, the play has gone on to become the fourth longest running production on Broadway and the sixth longest in the West End in London. Where did I see it? Maybe I even saw it on Broadway. I either saw it in Toronto or I saw it in New York. I can't remember. The plan to bring an animated version to the big screen has been on the books for years, but the technology to do it with actors looking like cats didn't exist until very recently. Because we had the Jon Favreau film Lion King. So there we saw the technology exists. So Universal Pictures, which owns the rights to the film, they hired Oscar-winning director Tom Hooper, who won an Oscar for, I think he won an Oscar for The King's Speech, but he directed The King's Speech, he directed The Danish Girl, he directed Les Miserables, the guy with the close-ups. He seemed like the right choice for this experiment in cutting-edge visual effects. But maybe that was their first mistake, or maybe it was their second mistake, because even doing this was probably a mistake. Now, in this version, Lloyd Webber's story has been tweaked. Now, here we have Victoria the White Cat, played by English ballerina Francesca Hayward. She's been abandoned for some reason, and she's left at the back of the derelict Egyptian theater by her well-to-do owner. We don't see the owner. All we see are her high-heeled shoes and getting out of her very fancy car. Now, Victoria is not a jellicle cat yet, but she is the audience's surrogate on this feline. I was trying to think, like, instead of America's Got Talent, like Cat's Got Talent or something like that. Now, as each cat performs their theme song that tells us, and eventually Old Deuteronomy as well, and Old Deuteronomy this time is played by a woman, Dame Judi Dench. So these songs tell us who they are, not to mention reminding us ad infinitum that they are jellicle cats, whatever that. Victoria looks on in wonderment. And becoming a jellicle cat is apparently Victoria's only option at this point, now that she's been kicked to the curb. Now, eventually, Old Deuteronomy makes her choice, but not before we've heard from Grizabella, played by Jennifer Hudson from Dreamgirls, and of course, very famous from American Idol. And she wrings every last microdrop of emotion from the musical's signature song, Memories. So that's what the story's about. Now, there's a lot more, but I don't want to get into it because it's not worth it. Go see the play. Go see the movie. Now, there are so many problems with his production that it's really hard to know where to begin. The technology is interesting, but one necessary. Now, audiences have been watching this play for 38 years without any problem imagining that the actors are supposed to be cats. So do they really need to be cats now? You know, I can see you want to do an animated, fully animated version, with photorealistic animals. I could see that might work, but to have actors wearing, they're wearing bodysuits with what do they call those dots that are, so that they can CGI the fur on top of them, the fur and the whiskers. That's what it is. Um, I don't know, and part of the problem is it looks like the actors are wearing cats. It doesn't look. They don't look like cats with human faces. They look like actors in cat suits. So it's not even good CGI. And this, apparently, I'm sure you've heard, there was a VFX software tweak that arrived at cinemas by satellite transmission the other day. It marks the first time in cinematic history that a film has been altered while it's still in the cinemas. But even still, apparently the version that I saw was tweaked. But even still, the cats still have hands and feet. Shoes. Apparently, I didn't notice this, but Taylor Swift's cat was wearing high-heeled shoes. I didn't notice that one. Apparently, she was. And you had Rebel Wilson's cat had a manicure. You know what? I get the whole manicure thing, but she should have had claws. You see fingers. There should have been claws and paws. You've got the technology. Make them claws and paws. Don't make them fingers and toes. And manicured fingers at that. And also the cats, they lack genitalia and even buttholes, which they could have sniffed once or twice. That's what cats do. They sniff buttholes and they lick. Okay, you don't want to do the licking thing. All right, fine. You want to make it a family movie. You don't want to lick genitalia on the big screen. Fine. They could have done. So, and then you have actor Jason Derulo, who says that his genitalia were airbrushed out. Okay, let's not get into that one. So that was really poor, really, really poor. Then there are the ears that remain strangely stationary for the first half of the movie, and then they start to wiggle in the second half. So it seems like, halfway through, somebody said, "Oh, we should get the ears to move like cats, because that's what cat ears do." But we don't have enough time to do it for the whole movie, so let's just do it for the second half. Very poor, very, very poor. Now, Hooper, the director, he said the production schedule was rushed so that the film could be out by Christmas. Apparently, he only finished the film a couple days before it was released. So maybe that means we're going to get more VFX tweaks in the coming weeks. I don't know. But too late. The damage has been done. The film's already out there. People, not many people, but people have already seen it, and the word is already out. What a disaster this film is. All right, so there's the visual effects problem. Second problem with the film is the matter of scale. It's out of whack. There's one number at the beginning, takes place at Piccadilly Circus. Either the cats have become giants or the fountain has been miniaturized. The scale is completely off. The cats are too big, Very strange. Then later on, a little while later, you have a number that takes place. I'm here for the auction. What auction are you here for? Somebody's writing me a message saying I'm here for the auction. Sweetheart, I think is the couch still available? Sweetie, I think you're on the wrong page, but thank you for showing up. You might want to listen. Anyhow, there's a number later on that takes place in the alley behind the theater, but they're still larger than a garbage can lid. Now, I've seen big cats in my day, but not that big, Then, towards the end of the film, the final number takes place at Trafalgar Square. Then it's right. Then you have the cats the right size, the right scale for the fountain at Trafalgar Square. So, the whole thing is what happened that somebody didn't say as they were watching these rushes saying, oh, the scale is off, or oh, the scale keeps changing. Oh my God, like easy. Now, some of the actors have gone on talk shows this past week to talk about their time at cat school, but we've seen better cat performances coming from second graders at their year-end school plays. This is like, I don't know what they learned at cat school, but they didn't learn to become cats. You know, one of the worst performances, and there are so many to choose from, comes from James Corden, who plays James Corden in a furry fat suit. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen it. He is playing himself, and he's going, that he learned that in cat school. I mean, you don't have to go to cat school to learn that. So this is bizarre. Now, in case you're wondering, he's supposed to be Bustopher Jones, the upper class cat, but there's nothing classy about his performance. Then you have Taylor Swift, who the flirty bomb ballerina. She has all the sexiness of wallpaper paste. I mean, wow. I'm not, you know, I have respect for her. She's done extremely well as a performer, but she's out of her depth here. Then there's Judi Dench, who's just as miscast here. She's not a singer. She speaks most of her songs instead of singing them, because let's face it, and there's no amount of audio in the world that would be enough to make her sound like a singer. So that was really, really, really poor. Now, but hands down, as bad as all these performances are, hands down, the prize for the worst performance goes to Idris Elba, who plays the evil Macavity. Now, when he sheds his coat, he wears a trench coat. When he sheds his coat, be sure to look away from the screen, because that is an image that you won't soon forget. It will be burned on your conscience for a long, long time. So do yourself a favor, turn away. So expect to see him win a Razzie for this role. Now, to say one good thing about this film. The film's one good performance can be found in Robbie Fairchild, who plays Munkustrap, the story's narrator. I liked him. He played a good cat. He was interesting. He's a good dancer. He's a good singer. But the rest, oh my God, terrible. So you have bad CGI. You have wonky scale. You have cringeworthy performances. And finally, you have camera work that's beyond comprehension. You have beautiful choreography by Andy Blankenbuehler. He was involved in Dirty Dancing, the movie. He was involved in a TV series called Fosse Verdon. And it's wasted because Hooper can't decide how to capture these dance sequences. He repeatedly cycles from close-up to medium shot to wide shot and back again. And often he pans you see as a blur of fur. There was no spectacle here. There was nothing exciting about this. You know, when you should have been uplifted. You're like this because the camera is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and going like this. So very, very strange. Cats. It's certainly in the running to be the worst film of the year. Is it the worst film of the decade? That's pushing it. But of the year, it will be in my bottom 10, my top 10 of the worst film of the year. It is bad. So you want to go see this film, I send you my thoughts and prayers. That's all I'm going to talk about. Great day. I'm getting these weird messages up on my screen about a couch. I have no idea what these people are writing about, but I'm glad you're all having fun. Have a good day. Have a good end of the year. Happy New Year. See ya.